This reality of outbound, it's the nuance that we see because we do it every day, but it's what's missed from the highest level because they don't see all these layers in between.
Like, so the game today with all the automation, all the data, all the insights, the rise of AI, the reality is if you're not working with someone like us who knows how to operationalize the list, who knows how to focus on eliminating all the waste and frustration, the idea that your rep could go from a scheduled interaction to a couple clicks to your next best conversation is almost impossible.
Welcome back to another edition of Outbound Fluff. No sales. One of the most common reasons why there's tons of fluff in your outbound is because of this one thing we're going to talk about today. It is the true funnel above the funnel. It's what happens all the way from when I identify an account to who I can actually speak with. And when you understand these various layers that Ryan and I are going to cover today, you can start to see the game differently. It's no longer just a game about volume or can I actually get good data? It's a game of math. Today, we're going to go over the math of sales, that is the funnel above the funnel. And stay tuned for future episodes where we'll go deeper into the rest of the math of sales. I'm Ronen Pessar. This is Ryan Reiser. We're the Outbound Operators. Let's dive in. So I was just telling Ryan, I got on the phone today with the founder, tech company based out of Israel. Their seed going for their A, growing really, really nicely. We get into the conversation. He starts telling me about this product. It's a technical product. Average contract value is 60 to 120K. Really great. Love being in that zone. Anything north of 50K is usually great for cold calling. So the follow-up question I asked him was, what does sales look like today? Oh, it's EO, founder-led. Obviously, we're in a stage where we want to start to be able to grow that. Okay. Tell me about your addressable market. You've got maybe 500 to 1,000 accounts. Uh-oh, first red flag. All right, well, so at each one of these accounts, how many contacts would you even want to talk to and sell to? Like probably CTO, CIO, maybe VP or director level. It's like, yeah, usually 3 to 5 at each. So I'm like, okay, quick math in my head. If it's 500 accounts, you got 5 people at most. That's 2,500 contacts at most. And so I say to the guy, I'm like, I've got good news and bad news for you. The good news is if you do continue to go doing outbound, cold calling specifically, there's going to be some fruitful yield there, return. The bad news is don't go hire a full-time SDR. You don't have nearly enough workable market tax accounts to feed one person. For sure not in our engine that we build, the outbound engine. Maybe you've got enough for like a 1 to 2 hour a day cold caller, like a fractional, who's probably going to hit their head on the ceiling anyway every 6 weeks. And so if you want to choose to invest in that, where, yeah, I mean, initially I was thinking it's like once a month they're going to go through everything. If you want to choose to invest in being able to identify that, like I could tell you best guesstimate here without knowing the company, without doing any deep dives or anything, you got 3,000 total workable contacts in your universe. Maybe those are workable. Let's start whittling it down. How many are reachable? Best case scenario, because the value is so high for each one, let's say you go and really enrich.
Lonnie, take a step back. There's 2 things I want to make sure very clear as you're going through this. Number one, the first flag wasn't size of list. It was an average contract value of 60 to 120. That's not an average, that's a range. So that's number one. Doesn't know his numbers. I didn't interrupt you. Oh, so an average is an average, by the way. Good thing. When we're working on workable versus reachable, I just want to make sure this is very clear. Let's say there is 3 accounts per, or say 3 to 5 contacts per the 500 to 1,000 accounts, and you land somewhere in it's 3,000 total contacts. Those aren't all workable via the phone channel, which is what we're talking about, because only about 50 to 60% are going to have phone numbers. So that's not workable yet. Addressable.
Also, this is what I said to him. Look,
that's the whole point of addressable.
If you want to go in and go invest in all the enrichment data in the world, maybe it'll actually be worth it for you. Maybe you go tap 18 different data enrichment, providers for ZoomInfo, Apollo, all the Clay guys, everything out there. And maybe of those 3,000, you end up getting a phone number, at least one, for 75% of them.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe
75%. So you're whittling that list down now. You get your first chunk that's out.
If you're talking about something above and beyond a corporate dial, but the funny thing is, if we're talking about tech, about tech companies, even tech companies don't have phone numbers. It's the company numbers. So you're not going to get 100%. That's not even workable.
So this guy's down to 2,200 or so contacts with a phone number of his 3,000. So he's already lost 25% from target to workable. That's a good distinction, Ryan. I appreciate that. But then I said to him, like, look, you've already now invested all this money and time into getting to this point, and you're still not there yet. Next step is to figure out who's actually reachable. So let's figure out who's reachable by phone. You're going to go through and either do this the way that everyone does it, which is you're going to hire someone to figure that out for you very slowly, very expensively. That's called an SDR. They're doing this dial by dial, and you're probably not even going to track it. So you're not even going to figure out at the end of the day who's reachable. You're just going to have them take the list and call it. Or you're going to do it the smart, efficient way and outsource it to Titan X. You're going to pay for credits. And the reachable 80-20 rule is if you go through a list 5 times, you'll probably identify about 80% of the people who are reachable. 70 to 80% will be identified in 5 attempts on that list. So let's say you go through 5 times and you're going to go grab what that 80% of that reach is. What is that reach? Is it going to be 15% of the list or 20%? Let's just play games here with rounder numbers so it's easier. Let's say it's 20%. So now you've identified 15% of your remaining list is actually reachable. That means you've got 330 to 340 phone numbers, contacts that you could actually reach. Contacts you can reach, you've just poured so much money into finding out who that was. Now you're going to start the conversation, figure out where are you in your market. And now we know from Chet Holmes' buyer pyramid that
Hold
about
on.
10%.
Hold on, there's one more lever here. One more lever. That's reachable. Assuming you're not going to run into the 10 to 12% that are right name, wrong person. That's just from the signal. So you have to weed that out too. But reachable, let's assume you do have the right person. We actually now want receptive before you can really get into this, which is 60, 70% max. Just because you can get somebody on the phone doesn't mean that they're going to be receptive to hearing what you have to say. If you're really setting context, if you're not really setting context for
this reality of outbound is just it's the nuance that we see because we do it every day, but it's what's missed from the highest level because they don't see all these layers in between. I didn't even think of that, but like, yeah, sure. If you take a chunk of that out, like let's say 25% of who's reachable is never going to be receptive. Like they'll always answer their phone, but they'll never give you the time of day. Plus you may be mixing some bad data in there and you've got to go figure out is the better version of the data even reachable yet again, and probably not. Let's say you whittle down what's left of that list now to people who are actually receptive and not bad data. I don't know what, take out another 25% of that. So you're now left with 150 or so contacts out of your original 3,000 on the list. And we haven't even started conversations. But we know now, once you begin the conversations, you got about 250 contacts out of your 3,000 in a good case scenario, where a lot of money has already been invested in maximizing phone numbers, figuring out who's reachable, identifying the bad data and moving them out, and the people who are actually receptive when you do reach them. 250 people, chances are that 2 to 3% of those are going to be ready right now. About 10% total of those are going to be open to what you have to say. So if you're working with that 10% number, that means about 25 people are actually going to be open now when you reach all 250 or so. So if I say I am left with just this 25% number or 25 number of my original 3,000, this gives us a different number. The final number is that, let's see, multiply this by 100. We have 0.8%, 0.85%, less than 1% of people you've added to a list in your total workable, your total addressable market. Less than 1% are going to yield in some sort of positive ready now conversation. So if you want to invest in being able to target, talk to, and identify those 25 or so people out of your 3,000, we could do that for you. But let me just tell you, in life, there's 3 things that you get to choose from. You get to choose from 2 of the 3 things from anyone you ever work with: quality, speed, and cost. We'll give you speed and we'll give you quality, but it's going to cost you, not because we want to charge you a ton of money for it. It's just because that's the nature of what our system requires. All the data, the Titan X validation, the talent who's going to make the calls, the outcomes of the calls, documenting them, doing the follow-up. By the way, you keep running this over and over and over. Sure, some of the people who are not ready now in 2-3 months might be ready, but that doesn't warrant or justify enough work for even a part-time person. Someone who's going to even do 1 hour a day of cold calling, if you gave them this total list of like 250 contacts, that'll that'll be gone, what, in like a week, 2 weeks? Maybe
But not
every
not not
3 weeks?
not gone. It's just you wouldn't need more than after 2 or 3 weeks of calling it every day to get to the reachable and receptive portion of that list. Once you start following up on that list, you probably wouldn't need more than just a couple hours a week to stay on top of that list of initial 250 people. The end of the At the end of the day, I think that's a really good number to start throwing out there. Is a couple years ago, Greg Woodward, who runs a sales consulting business, DDR practice, does training, etc. He's a good guy. His benchmark is like for every 100 raw contacts you throw through his system, you can expect 1 to 3 meetings scheduled. So 1 to 3% of that raw list through like a full. He has like he calls them. I can't even remember what he calls them. Plays or something. Some sort of play.
Yeah.
Something. He a campaign kit. That's what he calls it. He's got like a campaign kit. So it's like a multi-touch process. But 1 to 3 out of every 100. That's when you know you're dialed in. It's very similar to what I say as a North Star when you're dialed in. For every 50 dials you make, you should get 8 to 12 conversations, 5 to 7 completions,
But
2
that's
plus
already after all the
activations.
work we just talked about has already been
That's
set up and
that's
done.
that's right. That's North Star for calling. Now you combine those two
Mhm.
with you're not working like so the game today with all the automation, all the data, all the insights, the rise of AI, the promise AI would be if magic wand, if I'm a sales leader, I want a system where if my rep is not in a scheduled interaction with a customer, you should be able to wave that magic wand and within 2 or 3 clicks, they're in their next best conversation, right? And ideally that conversation would be in that 0.5 to 2% range that we're talking about. That's where you want to get to. The reality is, if you're not working with someone like us who knows how to operationalize the list, who knows how to focus on eliminating all the waste and frustration, the idea that your rep could go from a scheduled interaction to a couple clicks to your next best conversation is almost impossible. Like the amount of waste and frustration it goes from selecting an account,
Yeah.
getting the contacts within the accounts I want to talk to, the contact information associated with them across multiple sources to figure out the one number that I might be able to try that if I call them enough times, they will eventually pick up. And is it even them on the other end of the line? And are they receptive to having a conversation? It's 3,000 plus contacts, right? To get to the 300 that are probably worth, right, going after in that case, that's that range. And then the work that you can put against them, if you could just focus on them, that would be the North Star. Now, what we're talking about is in order to get there, there's a fast, cheap, what do you call it? Speed, quality, and
Speed, quality.
cost. Speed, quality, cost. Like you can choose two, you can't have all three. We can help with the speed and quality. Won't be cheap. But if you go any other way, it's still not going to be cheap because of the waste and the frustration that goes through that
you're
process.
defining the hidden costs, right? So you're saying that it's not going to be cheap because there's going to be a lot of what are they, like beneath the surface costs, like rep time or all of the money spent just to identify like one person who's actually the right person that I'm then going to go call. What you're saying is like the system has so much leakage in it of value, but it's not usually observed by the people at the top deploying the strategy. And at the people operating at the SDR, the AE, the rep, they're usually seeing more of it, but they're still not completely aware of what's happening. And so when you have this gap, what we see is, and this is what our engine fixes because it eliminates a huge portion of this waste, what we see is that most reps who end up, if you're an SDR, you're making 40 to 50 dials a day. That's the average. Most of those calls are by nature of the setup, the system, are going to 100% be a waste from the minute before they're dialed. The fact that the call's being made is already going to be a waste. So that's what you're referring to when you say like you think you're going to get it cheap, at the output of speed and I guess you're going to be like losing on quality in that example, getting cheap in speed. It's the same thing with the agency.
But you're not. But you're
right.
not.
It's there somewhere.
No
Somewhere
matter
along
how
the
you
way,
cut the diamond,
out.
no matter how you cut that diamond down, if you're truly trying to create a diamond from this like raw core of stuff, right? You get this massive list and you've got to whittle it down to some sort of here's where the diamonds are in the rough. You have to do the work somehow, right? Most other ways of getting to the actual raw asset, this would be prospects who actually want to spend time learning about what you do and ultimately becoming your customer at some point. Revenue is what we're after. At some point, you have to do the work. And most of that work is going to be done without the right information being captured, without the understanding of how far you should take a lead before you stop working it, without leveraging the channel strategy in the right way. There's so much missed in that process that um, even if you think it's cheaper now, because of the
Mm-hmm.
time it's going to take for you to get to the outcome, you're going to probably spend a lot more money. So no matter how you cut this thing, it has to be done. The work cannot be taken out of this equation. At some point, you've got to put the work in. But if you use data, intelligence, and leverage the insights along the way, you'll put yourself in a position where you can actually get to where you need to be a lot faster. Going back to your example, more often than not, this all requires, in order for you to use sales development as a resource intelligently within your organization in 2026, you have to have a large enough addressable market to justify the right work. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of waste and you're not going to get the outcome. That's the whole point, right? There's no point of putting an SDR on a list of 3,000 records to find the 300, right? That's just a very slow and expensive solution to get to not enough outcomes that doesn't justify the investment in the first place. Now, if you have a big enough addressable market, the average value of that client has to be big enough. So it has to be big enough with the value to be big enough in order to justify this investment. Because once you go through the effort that it takes, whether you're outsourcing the intelligence through something like us or you go brute force, by the time the sales development rep gets to the outcome, if the value of that client isn't big enough, it's not going to be worth it. And if the quantity of work to be done, it won't extend the life cycle of them being on board for a long enough period of time. That's the point that's trying to be made here.
Well, this episode is definitely more technical and complex, but this is what we're trying to share with you guys so you understand that there's more to outbound than just make a list and call a list. There's all the steps in between. But with that understanding and awareness comes the ability to actually change it and make it better. So follow along for more like this. I'm Ronen Pessar. With me is Ryan Reichert, the one and only. We're the Outbound Operators. If you enjoyed this episode, let us know. If you hated it, let us know. Either way, hit subscribe and drop a comment down below. And tune in for the next one.